The opinions expressed are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the official positions of the sponsors, advertisers, or presenters. Advertising does not imply endorsement by the sponsors and presenters.
Hey guys, and welcome back to Lighting Controls Podcast. We have a shorty for you today, and we have Paul coming back from the DALI Alliance, and he's going to tell us about the summit coming up. But before we get into that, Webster's going to tell you a bit more, but I will take a minute to remind everyone, today's episode is presented by the LCA, the Lighting Controls Association.
And it's financially supported by the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors, or NAILD. Check out our website, lightingcontrolspodcast.com. We've got all of our episodes, a news feed, merch store, training opportunities, as well as our Council on Lighting Control Startup and Integration. But, let's hop into this because, I think I'm really super excited because, first of all, DALI Alliance is sponsoring this episode, which we are super grateful for. Again, we cannot do this without our sponsors. DALI Alliance has been a great partner to us, to the podcast in general, to raising awareness in North America for DALI. Ron and I are big proponents of DALI. And so really appreciate this. If you want to check out information on DALI Alliance, go to dali-alliance.org. And you can check out more on them. And additionally, we've got this summit coming up. And so the DALI Alliance Summit, which is in October, this is like weeks away. We've brought Paul onto the show to talk a bit more about the summit, because I'm sure people who aren't aware of it or are just now hearing about it, or maybe a little bit curious about DALI but don't know where to start, this might be the perfect opportunity for you to really get into the game, get an understanding of DALI. And so, Paul, before we even get into the DALI Summit, though, do you mind just, for those who did not listen to the first podcast recording you were involved in, do you just mind giving us a quick breakdown on who you are and what you do?
Sure. Yeah. Why wouldn't they listen to the first one? I'm Paul. I'm sometimes known as the DALI-lama. I'm the general manager of the DALI Alliance, and I generally manage the DALI Alliance. So, you want a bit more than that? Or?
No, that's fine. We leave it up to the person who wants to give the description. I love the term DALI-lama, though. That really, I think hits it on the head, because you really are sort of this goodwill advocate when it comes to DALI. And so as far as DALI, definitely recommend people check out the episode. We'll have a link to that in the description for the previous episode we had you on the show. But again, we brought you into this to talk about the DALI Summit. So give us your elevator pitch for the DALI Summit that's coming up.
Ooh, right. Well, yeah, so a brief summary would be that it's everything you wanted to know about standardized lighting controls, but we're afraid to ask. Obviously, it's only about DALI, so we acknowledge that there are other lighting control solutions out there in the world. I would argue that none of them are really standardized in the same way as DALI, or certainly not for general lighting. That's the main crux of it, is to come along, find out more. If you don't know anything about DALI, you will learn about DALI. If you already think you know plenty of things about DALI, I guarantee you'll learn something new. And probably a lot of things you'll learn that you didn't already know, or you had some preconceptions about. So that's really what it's about. Yeah.
Awesome. And so, Paul, to follow up on that, for all of our listeners who are dying to now know where the DALI Summit is going to be, when, where, and how do they get more information about it?
Okay, so when, it's the 30th of October, so literally the day after NY Controlled. If anybody's going to NY Controlled, stay an extra day, come to the summit. It's in the same venue, so that's lucky too, right? So you don't have to figure out anywhere else to go. Which is the Metropolitan Pavilion in New York City, 30th October, and we're starting 8:30 a.m. for check-in, registrations, etc., and then we kick off at 9, and we'll run through to something like 5:30, depending on how many questions and stuff there is throughout the day. So yeah.
No, it's
Oh, and something really important that I need to get across to the listeners and anybody that's interested is there are CEU or AIA credits. I don't know exactly the terminology. It's both actually. It's both with the IES and AIA. There are we're just waiting for the final confirmation, but we're pretty confident there'll be at least 6 to be had there from the day.
that's great. Yeah, that's a good packed amount of credits to be able to get in one day. And just for people who don't know where the Metropolitan Pavilion is, it's 123rd West 18th Street in New York, so Manhattan. And yeah, I mean, this is going to be a really big crash course on DALI and other sort of, like you said, interconnected systems. And so, what should people expect to learn? What are some common topics that are in these CEUs that are coming up?
Okay, well, so the day roughly goes. I'm not going to go through the whole agenda, but we're
Sure.
going to start off with basically an overview of DALI, a little bit of the market situation of DALI around the world. DALI is by far the most widely used standardized protocol for lighting, around the globe. The uptake's been less in North America, and that's the
Hmm.
reason that we've been ever present there. So there'll be a little bit of a market update. There'll be a panel session, which will be some key players in the industry and generally in the buildings and ownership kind of industry, um, talking about the need for standardization in lighting controls and the need for lighting controls indeed. Um, so sustainability, energy conservation, carbon neutral or carbon zero, these kind of issues. So we'll be talking about that. Then we'll break into some slightly more, I'm going to say technical training, but it's not like really deep technical training. It's kind of, it'll ease you in gently and give you the basics, and then build on that, to a level that the general audience will be comfortable with. Anybody that wants to go deeper than where we're going to go on the day will need some kind of advanced training, which I'll talk about that a bit later on. But
Sure.
that's it. So there'll be some breakouts that'll get a little bit down and dirty with products, and just show some comparisons, for example, between um, DALI or D4I and some other technologies. Um, and then there'll be, at the end of the day, we'll have a panel session with some of our board members and senior figures amongst the DALI Alliance to just kind of make us accessible and understand what the people are looking for, and take it from there.
I mean, it sounds like a fantastic curriculum you have there, and it really is a great entry point for people who are, a little bit curious, know a tiny bit about Dolly, want to up their game, want to get familiar. Because I mean, as far as things go, from where I'm sitting and what I'm seeing in the landscape of lighting controls, Dolly is really starting to see some traction in North America, which is phenomenal. Because like you've said, it's been very slow in the uptake in North America. And I'm curious if you have any insight into particularly why now we're starting to see this increased interest.
Well, so there's a few things coming together right now, and we touched on this in the previous episode as well. That
Hmm.
I think the market understands the difference between proprietary control solutions and standardized control solutions, and the impact that that has. So we have way over 400 members around the globe, and you can choose product from any of those 400 members, and they will work interoperably, for the lifetime of a building, which is multiple decades, with other manufacturers' products. So, and the power of that is that you're not locked to one vendor, for the
Hmm.
life of your building, let alone for one project. So there's that, and I think that realization that some of the other prevalent technologies have limitations, I'm not going to name names, but we know who we're talking about, right? Um, and so there are limitations in the industry of the way that the USA in particular is right now. And there is a need for lighting controls. So the the rebate schemes, the utilities, well building, pretty much anything you want to do with a new building, at any kind of sizable level, um, you're going to need at least some kind of lighting controls, and
Hmm.
probably you're going to need some kind of fairly sophisticated lighting controls, even if it seems simplistic from a user perspective. Behind the scenes, you want to be reporting energy data and diagnostic information. You want to be able to manage that solution and feed that data into software further up the food chain, which we don't get involved in other than providing the data for it.
Hmm.
Um, so, and I think, you know, the time for digitization is clearly upon us. And USA has dragged its feet a little bit, I have to say. And I think there's a realization that can't go on forever. Much like the transition from traditional light sources to LEDs, maybe a couple of decades ago, depending on how you look at it, that the transition from uh, analog controls to sophisticated, highly capable digital controls that are standardized. I think that's what's happening right now.
Hmm.
So is that a short answer? I don't.
No, I mean, that's a great answer, whether or not it's
Yeah.
short.
We've spent a lot of time on the show obviously talking about interoperability between systems, and that's where DALI really does shine, right? That's where the designers don't have to necessarily make sacrifices. They can say, I like this keypad, I like this device, I like this, and they can mix and match because the devices will communicate. So as we're starting to see more traction, there's still obviously, I'm sure, plenty of people listening to this going, I've never even seen DALI in my area. I've never heard of DALI before. I'm sure there's still a lot of that still happening. So Webster kind of mentioned early on in his intro about raising awareness. Can you tell us a little bit more about some of the North American supports that are available that are going to hopefully help push DALI into the market?
All right. Well, that's a great question. Thanks for that. So, um, I joined DALI about 5.5 years ago, and although there was plenty of DALI being used in North America, nobody was talking about it, and it was a little bit siloed. That nobody wanted to admit that they're using DALI because everybody, a lot of people don't know what it is, right? So, and if they use it, then they might be making claims that they can't substantiate. So, I think that was then, and since then we've been, we went into listening mode a little bit. So join up with other industry organizations that have good feedback networks within the industry. Work with them, really understand what is needed to make things happen, and then we've built a long-term strategy that involves us both hiring additional resource. So, 5 years ago, zero resource in dedicated resource in North America. Now we have three people, boots on the ground in North America. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a significant investment from us. And they're people which are dedicated to North America. They're not like part of a person from somewhere else or whatever. Um, so that's the first thing we did. We invested in resources, in people. um, we also took the time to understand what does the industry need from us, as well as just people resource and building up a profile and being visible and accessible at these kind of events. Um, so we started to build out a training and education strategy, and the DALI Summit in New York is really a kickoff for that. So we're ongoing. We're working. I'm not going to spill the beans on everything we're doing, but we're working closely with IELD, with IES, for example, with you guys, or with LCA in particular, to create materials that will form the basis of training and educational materials. And that's important because, one of the things that I heard when I was on my travels, many travels, to understand, what is needed is it's that comfort level. It's the I don't know what DALI is. I don't know how to get to it. I don't if I get to it, I don't know how to use it. People tell me it's this or it's that, and it's too complex and it doesn't work. And of course, if those things were true, then the rest of the world wouldn't be using it still today. After 3 decades. But anyway, but their perception is whatever they feel about it, right? So it's we have to overcome those. And so we're building out, a set of training materials and educational materials, which will help a lot with that. And to support that, we've invested in resource, we've invested in partnerships with people who are, not only industry organizations, but also people that are experts at creating training and educational materials. We're also looking at investing in some tools. So people ask me a lot, well, is there any AI in DALI? Well, no, and there's no plans for that. But we are looking at using, potentially using AI for educational purposes, because it's a really good tool for for visualizing things. So that's something that's under investigation. It's down the road maybe, but the other things we're literally doing now, and at the summit, people will learn more details about what we have planned for those.
I mean, it sounds like you've really paid attention, because, one of the consistent themes that we've come across in this podcast has been a demand for education. And so the amount of work you're putting into the educational initiatives, and I've heard murmurings throughout the grapevine that there's more to come than the summit, and like you've alluded to. So it's great to hear that is really part of this rollout plan, because of the fact that, like you've said, there's just a lot of misunderstanding or misconceptions, or just a lack of awareness for DALI. And so getting the education out there, getting it in front of people, and getting ahead of, these poor impressions people have of DALI that are based on nothing, really is a great effort, because, we can really help elevate everybody's knowledge and awareness of DALI all at the same time, if we have a sole source of that information. And so the DALI Alliance is really doing some fantastic stuff in the background, and I'm really excited to see sort of the future of all of these materials. And personally, I'm going to be going to the DALI Summit. I'm super excited to be there and see how everything's going to be educated and taught about, and to see, hopefully I'll get to see those moments in people's experiences where the light bulb finally turns on and go, oh, I get it now. Like, because it really is like one of those technologies where it's like, once you start to understand it, that's when you really get to fully appreciate the value that it brings. But until then, it's just sort of like this alien concept, and it's like, oh, I don't know, DALI, it seems a little weird. So ultimately, I'm just really excited to see, everything happen at this event. And I think pairing it with NY Controlled is a really smart move, because everybody's going to be in New York already, going to that same spot the day before. So hopefully we'll see some rollover from attendance at NY Controlled going to the DALI Summit. And so, for those who are listening and may not be already sold on this idea, or still sort of like, well, I don't know if this is for me, like, who is the target audience for the DALI Summit?
Okay, so the simple answer to that is anybody who is involved in any way in designing, specifying, or planning, or even signing off, a lighting controls solution, in a building, or outdoors, of course. But I think that there'll be a heavy focus on building related materials. Although we do have an outdoor stream, for anyone that's doing citywide
Mhm.
projects, for example.
Sure, yeah, but I mean that really does cover a lot of different roles in our industry, and even
Yeah.
people who might be going, well, I don't really do that much. It's like, well, if you choose a product that is part of the lighting control system, and that includes the drivers and the luminaires, you should absolutely consider attending this summit because everything from driver to keypad is a lighting control system component. And if you're involved in any decision making process, whether it be the wire that you're running as a contractor or it's the entire system that you're specifying as a sales rep, you should absolutely consider attending this because if you don't understand how DALI works or how it falls into the ecosystem or how interoperability, that term that's growing in popularity, is really a key component, you should really attend this because it really is going to go over all of that stuff and help you kind of elevate your own knowledge and skill base. And like you've said, Paul, we're seeing this trend. And so if you want to get ahead of the trend, you should absolutely attend this summit and you should absolutely keep aware of what the DALI Alliance is doing awareness-wise, outreach-wise, education-wise, everything that's coming out. You should check out their website. They've got some fantastic resources on there, such as what Paul was alluding to, where the manufacturers that get their products certified are listed in a database. So if you want to find DALI listed products, go to the DALI Alliance's website and check it out because they've got everything there. You do need to go through the filters if you're working in North America, though. You got to find that North America checkbox so that you're filtering for North American products. But they have the resources available for you if you want to start entering this world and understanding it more. And so, from the holistic standpoint, you said that this is sort of the kickoff. Is there anything that you can share about what's on the horizon for education outreach or whatever with DALI Alliance?
Well, I can share that we're creating. I think it's fairly common knowledge right now that we're creating a detailed um, designer and specifier. Again, aimed at the same group of people. Anyone that touches specification and design
Mm-hmm.
in any way for lighting control systems. We're creating a document that is targeted. It's a pretty comprehensive document, which is why it's taken a bit of time to produce and finesse in particular. Um, and that will be, we're hoping to launch. Um, I'm going to say sometime after the summit because I don't want to get people's hopes up too much, but I wish it could be at the summit. Maybe it will be. Who knows? So that will be the first of these materials that we produce. Um, we're also, looking at a training program where we train key organizations within the industry and give them the tool sets to go and provide training, almost on our behalf or endorsed by us at least,
Mm-hmm.
so that the source materials come from the DALI Alliance, not from any specific manufacturer. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but to make sure that there's no bias or other kind of impartiality challenges there. It's better that the materials come from us. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so, and in addition to those, we are also going to produce a series of guides. So, not training documents per se, and maybe kind of barely education documents, although I would argue that they are. But aimed, for example, at building owners and investors. So someone that's like, I've heard about this DALI thing. Why should I care about that? What does it do for me? Yeah, and so different people within the industry will have different things that they care about that DALI might bring them. And so we're going to try and tailor make those. Of course, there'll be some overlap and there'll be some level of generic understanding, but they're very, very brief, introductory. Not trying to teach people how to use DALI, but just like, why would I use it? Why? Tell me, what are the key benefits that speak to me? And they'll be slightly different depending on which persona group they are, and that's why there'll be I'm going to say a bunch of them, without being specific about the number,
Sure.
probably more than 3 or 4 and less than 10, something like that. The other thing that we're doing in association with that is we're going to give a little bit of a tweak, and that's probably an understatement, to our website. Because our website is quite technical, it's quite focused on the manufacturers who are manufacturing products, who are the mainstay of our business. But we are directing people that are on the periphery of our industry, maybe in that regard, to come and look at our website. And maybe when they get there, they don't, today they don't get the best experience because it's not tailor made for them. So we're going to fine tune it a little bit, have these guides that ease them into to DALI, and then if they want to learn more, there'll be deeper and deeper, more technical or more informational materials behind that. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this is all fantastic. We're almost out of time here, so I kind of want to wrap this up. But I mean, all of this is just excellent stuff and really does address a lot of the concerns that we've been hearing through the guests we've had on this podcast, which is a lack of educational material for people in North America. And so you're really providing a great resource. And I think soup to nuts, going in and having these guides for people who, you don't need to understand how DALI functions inside and out, but you may want to have some kind of brochure that you can at least flip through and go, oh, okay, I get it. This is why, my lighting designer or my engineer is driving me in this direction to use DALI. Because it's so frequent that you have these conversations and somebody says, well, why am I paying so much money for this really expensive system? It's like, well, you're actually not probably paying that much money in the long term of things. And so having these brochures or whatever you're going to call them really will help that conversation along the process. But I mean, ultimately, again, one of the primary focuses of this episode was to really highlight the summit coming up October 30th, the Metropolitan Pavilion in New York City. And you should check out, if you're not registered, you should absolutely register for it. I personally am so excited. I can't wait to see it and attend there. I highly recommend anybody who has even the slightest interest in attending. I'm going to say it's going to be worth it, because regardless of whether or not you're going to be an expert in DALI by the time you leave, you're going to know enough to be able to make decisions. You're going to be able to have the connections. You're going to meet people at this place that are already in the know, already doing this kind of work. And additionally, you will be ahead of the curve when it comes to this interoperability that's starting to sweep North America. And you can either stay in your comfort zone and not branch out and eventually get bowled over when the tide comes, or you can step up and really learn. And I'm not saying DALI's the only option. Like you said, Paul, there are other things that are coming in to North America with this goal of interoperability, and it's fantastic. And we're really seeing a much more collaborative approach to lighting controls and lighting controls design. So whether you make a decision at the smallest level on a lighting control system, or you're designing entire systems in lighting controls in North America, you should absolutely consider attending this to learn more about DALI. But yeah, I think as far as where we're going with DALI, it really is exciting personally. Like as much as you guys are sponsoring this episode, I truly do believe in the goal of getting DALI much more commonplace in North America. And so I'm one of your biggest proponents, at least from an influencer standpoint, because I just really do have a passion for seeing this take hold and take traction in North America. So it's really great to see all of this stuff coming out.
Maybe I should interview you on the podcast next time.
I'm not opposed to that.
It'd be good though, like Webster said, we have to get people out of their comfort zone, and not that there is necessarily anything wrong with certain antique protocols like 0 to 10, but please can we start moving things forward a little bit? Like there's something to be said for getting some of these people out of their comfort zones. So yes, the DALI Summit, October 30th. Paul, for people who are looking for more information, I know we're going to have the link in the description, but for people who are looking for information on where they can register and where they can find those contact information for those North American resources, what is the best website for them to go to find that information?
Yeah, so they can just come to our website. It's on the main page. So www.dali-alliance.org. It's right on the front page there. Just scroll down a little bit. You'll find the link to the DALI Summit page, and there you can find the agenda, which is preliminary right now, but you know, we're going to be firming that up over the next week or so. And you can find the link to sign up. There is a cost. We should say there is a cost. But I think, you know, for what you get, the value is going to far outstrip the cost. So.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
I think that the cost is a pretty easy price to pay for attendance of this.
Yeah. Paul, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time today. And I hope to see more and more people. And hopefully we'll see a bunch of you. I'm hoping to get there myself on the 30th. So hopefully we'll see you guys there on the 30th at the DALI Summit. But thank you so much. I will take this moment to remind everyone today's episode is presented by the LCA, the Lighting Controls Association.
And it's financially supported by the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors, or NAILD. Check out our website, lightingcontrolspodcast.com, where we have all of our episodes, including the episode where we had Paul on before. But, you know, we really appreciate you joining us here today. And Paul, thank you so much. And thank you, DALI Alliance, for sponsoring this episode and supporting the podcast. We really could not do it without you. Check them out, DALI-alliance.org. You know, again, really want people who just even have the slightest interest in attending this, please register. You know, this is really going to be a fantastic opportunity for people to learn more about DALI and step up their game in lighting controls skills and knowledge. So, but until then, thank you so much for joining us. And Paul, thank you. Really excited to see the summit and see what else DALI is bringing to us in the future.